you can either lean into that and go, I'm here and I'm uncomfortable and that's what I wanted. I didn't take this job to be static. I took the job to grow. And that's not going to feel good all the time. I think people look into you in a role and go, well, you've got it all sorted. You look pretty confident. There's so many moments where you go, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not.
Hello and welcome to B&T TV, where I'm joined today by a group of talented women from GroupM. With me today, I have Aimee Buchanan, CEO at GroupM, Maria Grivas, CEO at Mindshare, Pippa Berlocher, CEO of EssenceMediacom, and Melissa Hayes, CIO at GroupM. So my first question is for you, Pippa. How does sort of being promoted and get a new role later on in your career compared to the beginning of your career?
Well, I think my career is slightly different than most in that I spent my first role in media I spent 17 and a half years in. So my role changed every 18 months to 2 years, but it felt quite organic, right? Like I just logically took that next step, etc. So it wasn't really until my previous role, which was an APAC CEO role, that I found moving out of my first job, 17 and a half years, into a CEO role quite daunting and definitely out of my comfort zone. And I remember when the offer came in, honestly, I burst into tears and I wanted to go back to bed, put the doona over my head, and I really was quite filled with self-doubt about whether I could do that. So then getting the offer for this role, honestly, I'd done my previous role. I think I did a reasonable job of it. It was a pretty challenging role. So I didn't have any of that self-doubt with this role. I was just really proud to be offered it and really excited. I think the premise of EssenceMediacom coming together is a really sexy kind of proposition. So that excited me. But I think that as a more senior person or more experienced, I had a little bit more trust in my capability.
Let's go to that. It kind of links me to my question for you, Melissa, because, I think when you have any kind of new role, there's always that self-doubt or period of self-doubt at the beginning. Do you sort of still struggle with that, I guess, later on in your career?
Yeah, I feel that I've always struggled with that. I think it's always tough, taking on change at any level, and that also then goes to self-doubt. So yeah, unlike Pippa, I actually, even going into this role after so many years, did actually have the self-doubt and go, can I do it? So I did question myself, and I have all through my career felt that way every time, and the movement has come. But at the same time, I think that question and that challenge actually helps you grow. So ensuring that you are actually open to change is really important, and I've found that as the more I've been doing it, the more comfortable I get with it, but I'll never be fully there. And having worked somewhere as well for 12 years in the one place, it still comes throughout that as well. It doesn't mean even though you're 12 years, you get in a comfortable place. There is change there that you do want to take on and challenge yourself, and you still have that self-doubt. So yeah, this one was a challenge. It was a change going up and stepping up, but it was something that I really needed to find out whether I wanted to do, because I was actually at that point, do I want to keep going? Do I want to keep building? So that was the big question for me, and yeah, Aimee talked me into it, so here I am.
I might just build on that. I think change is such a natural process to growth. And of course, anytime you're growing, it can feel uncomfortable. And that's just part of the process of moving forward into something that's a bit unknown. But what I've found in my career that has really supported me to alleviate the pressure around self-doubt through those growth moments is to really focus on preparation. So having the self-awareness to understand what are the aspects of that change that are uncomfortable, and how can I prepare to really ensure that that self-doubt is mitigated and actually have a plan around change. And I think some people think that change is a fast process and that growth is something that just, there's a silver bullet for it and it happens overnight. But I don't think that's the case at all. Change and growth is slow and it takes time. And I think once you get comfortable in that, the self-doubt can really be alleviated.
I think that's an interesting point, because we talk a lot about imposter syndrome and stuff like that, but then it's also the case of when is there, actual things you can do to sort of help with that self-doubt? I mean, is the self-doubt kind of psychological purely, or is it kind of the self-doubt means I need to do X, Y, Z?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And it's like that whole notion of having self-limiting beliefs. They are your own creation. They're not imposed on you. So the more that you can identify what are your own self-limiting beliefs and then have a plan and a preparation behind overcoming those, you can remove some of those boundaries that might prevent you from experiencing really meaningful growth. And that's so important to everyone, not just people within our industry, right? No one wants to feel that they're not having an opportunity to grow, but I think that is in many ways self-determined. So the more that you can be comfortable in understanding, you know, your own awareness, your own capabilities and what is required for you to feel comfortable in that growth, the more you can overcome what those self-limiting beliefs are.
I like that. And I was going to ask you, Aimee, because when you're coming into a new company in a, you know, like a senior position or a kind of like top position, you know, you're coming into a new company and sort of learning everything, you know, where coffee is and things like that and all the kind of new company stuff. But then you're also coming in that top leadership role. So I was just interested to know sort of like, what's your process for that? How do you kind of understand the lay of the land as it is and also understand maybe what you want to tweak a little bit?
I still don't know where the coffee is, by the way. Look, I don't think it's too dissimilar to any other role. It's you come in with a clear remit on what needs to be achieved and where you're at and where you need to get to. That's pretty much every job you get. You have a pretty clear view on that. The path there for me is understanding and listening at the beginning, and we spent a lot of time in that first few months really digging into the feedback, what staff said. We ran bespoke staff surveys, we dug into kind of where things were at. We spoke to media partners, we spoke to clients, we spoke to them about our vision at GroupM, which is around being responsible for shaping the next era of media where advertising works better for people and how we bring that to life in a meaningful way. So once we had all of the feedback, then it just became about, well, what are the tactics and milestones to drive the change that was needed. So I think that process of listen, get all the data and insights you can get your hands on, build a roadmap of here the 4 or 5 steps and the milestones is pretty applicable to any single role that you go into. I think we've spoken a little bit about the self-doubt and the feeling of you going in and the growth. And for me, there were a lot of moments in that first 6 to 12 months where there's a point where I drive home every day and there's a set of traffic lights. And in my previous role, as I got towards the end of that role, I'd get to the set of traffic lights and I'd be like, okay, another day, not much new happened. And in the first 6 months of this role, I get to the traffic lights and I'm like, okay, well, how am I going to cope with that? But I think you can either lean into that and go, I'm here and I'm uncomfortable. And that's what I wanted. I didn't take this job to be static. I took the job to grow. And that's not going to feel good all the time. I think people look into you in a role and go, well, you've got it all sorted. You look pretty confident. There's so many moments where you go, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing or not. But most of the time, there's a few options to that. And often they're not going to make or break you. There's just a better or a worse way. And I think you just need to get more comfortable with make a decision, live by the decision, and then learn from it and revisit it. So lots of discomfort, but the same process I kind of would have applied to any role that I stepped into. And there's been some good bits, and then there's been some stuff that hasn't gone well. And I think I stood up in front of staff at the beginning going, it's progress over perfection. Like, we just need to move stuff forward. It might not be right. And if we get it wrong, we'll tell you we've got it wrong. And we'll move it forward. And you need to forgive us if we get it wrong, because it's better to do something than do nothing at all.
Forgive us if we get it wrong.
I've already forgiven you. You wouldn't even ask for forgiveness.
So I love that point because it's so interesting when we talk about, you know, why business changes like sustainability and diversity included, things like that. It's when things are new, people are going to get things wrong. And there's no, especially with sustainability, there's no route at all. So it's quite interesting for you to say that, you know, have that be like, there will be mistakes.
And we don't have I think on the sustainability journey, and not too dissimilar to probably the diversity inclusion journey, we don't have all the answers to that. Like, if we did, we'd have it fixed. And so I think standing in any of these conversations and going, here's the path, and there's only one path, there's not. We're just trying some things that hopefully will move us forward, that we can learn from, and then we'll continue to evolve it. But for me, in that space, it's about action.
And finally for you, Maria, so what's your main what gets you out of bed in the morning in terms of, motivation, not alarm or anything like that? And also, yeah, has that motivation changed in your career at all?
Yeah, absolutely. I think if I reflect early on in my career, and I've been in this industry for over 20 years now, so it's quite a long period to reflect upon. But earlier in my career, that motivation was really about deepening my craft, becoming expert, being able to demonstrate my value through the core area of practice in digital data technology that I was fulfilling. And that was incredibly motivating to see the tangible value that expertise was bringing forward to clients and the impact that was having on the outcomes that we're employed to deliver for our clients. I think as I've grown throughout my career, what I've really reflected on and noticed is that becoming expert takes time, and having the patience to see that through. There's that amazing stat psychologically, it takes 10 years to become an expert in any field. And I think that's sometimes forgotten in our industry as, people are trying to progress and see growth as a hierarchy rather than as a deepening of capability.
Can I jump up to the next rung always?
That's right. I've been very comfortable for the majority of my career in really honing in on my craft and embedding my skill set. And that's been incredibly motivating. Now stepping into a broader leadership role, that motivation is beyond my craft. And it's with a lens of how do I lean into what was my core capability set, and how do I extend that value across our organisation, and how do I encourage our people and our teams to be equipped to be the best they can be in what they do, and really shift that focus into an enablement of the organisation. And I think for Mindshare, what we believe in is delivering good growth for our clients and delivering good growth for our people. And so the way that manifests is really, from a people perspective, ensuring that our practice of people creates an environment of psychological safety so that our people feel equipped to be at their highest performance, but also comfortable in where those areas of knowledge might not currently, be where they would like it to be, and to foster that curiosity and that safety to really, enable them to reach out and to grow in different ways. It's really important.
With the building the expertise, I spoke to someone about this the other day from Women in Media. She was saying that when she started her career, it was all about CV tenure. I don't know how you pronounce that word, tenure, staying somewhere a long time and having on your CV that you stayed somewhere a long time. And then maybe now, early on in the career, people kind of move around a lot more. Would you kind of recommend staying in one place to develop that expertise? Or do you mean maybe it's more like a mindset that you'll...
I think it's a mindset, right? Because you can still deepen your craft and your expertise by having, a focus on craft in different organisations. So I don't think it necessarily is a reflection on tenure, but it is a reflection on being focused in an area of capability that you're looking to establish. And I think that is what, enables people to have really deep value. And I think one of the concerns around people moving around every, 5 to 10 months and being promoted ahead of perhaps where their knowledge and their capability is that they lose that opportunity to really have that depth in what they specialise in. And I think that doesn't set you up for success for the long term. You end up playing catch up in your future roles and perhaps slows down your growth overall over a longer period of time. Yeah.
I think one of the problems of people moving around so quickly is that if they're moving from a role after 6 months, for example, they're moving when things get tough. And they can keep doing that for a certain amount of time in their career, but they're going to get to a stage where they're senior enough that there's not that many roles out there, and they're going to come across a problem and they've never really had to work through that before. And so they haven't built up that resilience of how to manage through and bring people on the journey of navigating that problem. And I think that's a real challenge for our industry if we see people that are consistently going to keep moving every 6 to 8 months in any given role.
Oh, that's good advice. That was actually bringing me to my final question, which I'd love a response from all of you, is what one piece of advice do you give to women in the industry?
I'll start, given I've got the microphone. I've been asked this question many times on panels, etc., and I've just recently changed my response to it. The advice I would give, and I wish that I had gotten this advice earlier, is to get a career coach throughout your journey and then throughout your career. I think that's one of the best things I ever did. I got it in my previous role, and I really struggled earlier in my career with imposter syndrome. I think we've talked about it on this conversation, and I think a lot of people do, men and women. And I spent the first 12 months of my career coach not even talking about my day-to-day professional challenges, but really just navigating why I felt like, I had that self-doubt in certain situations. And I remember one session where I was crying and I was like, oh my goodness, this is because of my childhood. Like, it felt like therapy. It was ridiculous. But it actually really helped me get through all of that sort of internal kind of pushing myself down and self-doubt. And I'm able to sort of, feel a lot better now as I move through any problems and challenges. And I feel a lot more confident in myself, and I think I navigate situations better. So career coach would be my key advice.
Mine's a similar build on that. It's not probably as hardcore as a career coach, but I feel like for me, and having been in the industry for that long, I've always been I'm not going to name how long, just 20 plus years, I'll go with Maria's quote, is being your real self. I think that's really important, and you should be that all the time, because we're a small industry. You come across people all the time and interact with people all the time. So if you're not your true self, that's reflected and people will find out. And so back to Pippa pointing out the imposter syndrome. Not that I'm sure you were still authentic, but it's important to be your real self, because people will see that through. And yes, you might change over time, but people will respect you for it.
They're very good ones. Mine would be to play the long game. I think we've spoken a little bit about the short-termism of this industry and how quickly people move. The reality is the people you're growing up with right now at any point in your career will be the people who are running businesses in 10, 15 years. And you need to take a long-term approach to both how you show up in your current role, but how you show up in the industry more broadly. And I think we're all too quick to go, what's my next promotion? What's the next step? What's the next account I'm going to work on? What's the next campaign I'm going to work on? Rather than seeing it through in its entirety and thinking about your long-term brand reputation.
Thanks. I think it's really important, especially in today's environment, to be aware of what all your motivators are. So recognizing that as a person, you are a whole person, and optimizing how you're motivated across advocational areas, financial, spiritual, and professional, social, etc., is so important to finding your source of confidence and to really, enable you to be more effective as a total person. And I think if you want to be a high performer in any organization, you really need to be, happy and fulfilled in many aspects of your life, not just your professional life. So my advice would be to really tap into what aspects of your full life are motivating to you and work hard at optimizing those aspects.
I feel like that's like a whole performance campaign.
I always speak in performance language, don't I?
Thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful advice, and thank you so much for joining us at B&T TV today.
Thanks so much, Sophia.
And thank you for watching.